go. So we're going to talk about the role HireVue is playing in helping companies cast a wider net and the partnership we're establishing between HR and AI, and what we're doing some pretty innovative things that are delighted to share here this morning. We're encouraging our customers to really start reimagining the hiring process. We've been hiring people the same way for 1,000 years at this point. I think by legend, the first resume ever submitted by anybody was Leonardo da Vinci to the Medicis, and it really hasn't changed much since then. So where are we today at HireVue? We've been in business for about 13 or 14 years. We've got about 700 customers today, and we've done about 6.5 million interviews globally. We're doing about 1 million interviews every 90 days at this point, continuing to grow and continue to see customers think about hiring in a brand new way. HireVue really got started with one problem in mind. We could save money by not having people travel, and that's still a very important part of how customers think of value today. But we've actually expanded much faster than that, much farther than that today. And the first thing that customers are really trying to focus on is casting a much wider net for talent. When you can break down the barriers to interviewing and allow people to take an interview on their time at any location in the world that they want to today, the barriers to entry really start to fall away, and you wind up with a much wider talent pool. And as a result, and by design, customers are actually seeing diversity start to improve as a result of that. So they're casting a wider net, and they're actually accelerating the speed at which they can do this. We know from statistics that we collect that for every 1,000 people that we invite to take interviews on behalf of our customers, about 700 of those people will complete that interview in 48 hours or less. So we're really increasing the cycle time and really increasing the velocity of talent flowing through the platform at any point in time. And customers are really responding to that in a very positive way. If you think about where we are today, and globally we've seen this change, in 2010 it took about 45 days to get an offer out to somebody. And we worked really hard and we implemented all of these great solutions, and as a result of all that, in 2018 it actually increased to 60 days. So we've got companies hiring people on a 60-day cycle, and we know that the best talent is actually falling out of this funnel in about 5 or 10 days. As one of our customers said to us, we don't think we're getting the best people. We're getting the best people that will sit through our lengthy process and stay with us till the end, because the best people actually leave very, very quickly. We also know that humans are very inconsistent. I think personally I'm a great interviewer on Wednesdays. Monday mornings, if I've had a bad weekend, Friday afternoons, it doesn't matter how good you are, you're not getting the job. Because I'm inconsistent. We're all inconsistent. Even if we think we're great, we're not great. HireVue delivers the promise of structured interviewing. When you know that you've interviewed 1,000 people and every candidate's been asked exactly the same question in exactly the same way, it's level setting. It actually increases the fairness of the process. All of the human connections that we have that we normally refer to, if I grew up in New York, you grew up in New York, I like to ski, you like to ski, all of that starts to fall by the wayside, and we're actually delivering the promise of structured interviewing in a very, very positive way that accentuates that diversity. It actually increases the overall fairness in the process. The third thing that we're really attacking is resumes, and I love the term that the resumes have the illusion of validity. Resumes haven't really changed much since 1,000 years, since Leonardo submitted that first resume to the Medicis, and they tend to be very overstated in terms of capability. It's a bad way to find talent. Mostly what a resume actually does is tell you how good you are at writing resumes. It doesn't tell you how good you are at actually doing the job at the end of the day. Think about all of us interviewing at any point in time, and think about the number of times you've looked at a resume and thought, boy, this person's terrific. And you meet them in person, and within a minute you're like, oh my God, they're terrible. They're not going to work here, and I've got all day with them, and the entire team has all day with them. Resumes are such a poor way to find talent that we think they've outlived their usefulness. They have this illusion of validity because we don't know any better. So at HireVue, we're really focused on two major things. One, helping companies cast a wider net and really finding the best talent faster. And we're using artificial intelligence in a very innovative way to help companies do that. First, we've got this great platform, and it allows candidates to take interviews any time of day, anywhere in the world at any point in time. Today, we're delivering interviews in 180 countries in 32 languages around the world. We'll probably do 10 or 11,000 interviews today globally. Really remarkable statistic that really sort of emphasized to me at least how important this was on Christmas Day. We saw about 5,000 people interview for jobs around the world. That's accessibility, and that really widens the talent. 40% of our interviews today are done on a mobile device. I heard somebody a few weeks ago that the only time, she's a working mom, the only time she could find job time to interview was in the front seat of her car in her driveway, because that's the only time she could find a few minutes to have an interview. We know that it's accessible. We know that candidates are having a great experience because it's all on demand. On top of all of this, we've built this artificial intelligence layer that really helps candidates really shine and really address the opportunity when you've got this very wide funnel. How do I sort through it in a way that identifies the best talent faster? We've developed this AI layer that actually transcribes the audio, looks at the video, and understands the way people are communicating on multiple levels. As we think about the way we communicate as human beings, we're communicating not only with the words that we use, the intonation with which we use them, and our facial expressions when we speak. And as I like to tell customers, the software knows the difference between I love my boss and I love my boss. I actually communicated two very different ideas there intentionally because the expression on my face added richness and context to what I was trying to explain. Well, we can do that for customers today, and we're looking at this very rich data. In the course of a 20 or 30-minute interview, we can collect several 100,000 data points to develop these artificial intelligence-based models. We're looking at the verbal cues, we're looking at the nonverbal cues. The next step in that process, we actually correlate that to performance inside the company. So we're not just looking at, are you a creative thinker? Do you have tenacity? Are you very customer-centric? We're actually correlating those skills to the attributes that it takes to be a success in your organization. And so we're building these statistically validated models that can actually interview very broadly and then help companies down-select very quickly. And these assessments happen near real time. So you could take an interview in the middle of the night in Peoria, and as a recruiting manager, I could come to work the next day and find your email on my desk saying, this guy's a great candidate, this woman's a terrific candidate, reach out to them tomorrow morning and set up an in-person interview. The ability to find talent and sort through this very wide net and not have it go through this traditional funnel methodology has enabled us to turn what's traditionally been a first-in, first-out process into a best-in, first-out process. We can sort through candidate pools near real time and divide them into groups to say this is the group you ought to interview in person because they're the most likely to be a success. This middle group, talk to them only if this first group isn't enough. In this bottom group, send them a thank you note. They're probably not going to be a great participant in your organization, but thank them for interviewing. So the ability to correlate all of those attributes to what it takes to be a success in the organization is having dramatic impacts on the hiring process. As I said, we've taken this traditional first-in, first-out process that generally takes about 60 days, and we're seeing customers really compress that into as little as 5 days in terms of from the moment the candidate completes an interview to offer. We've got customers that are interviewing 1,000 people a day, and you can imagine what that savings means when you can compress the hiring process from 63 days down to 5 days. So dramatic improvement in the overall process and a dramatic improvement in the candidate experience as well. Everybody's getting the same experience, it's branded, everybody has a very high quality experience. We track Net Promoter Score for all of our interviews, and we know that candidates are having a good experience as well. Some quick results here in terms of the things that we're focusing on and the metrics, and we tend to be very hard metric oriented in terms of the value we're creating, and I'll read a few of these. One, we're very focused on diversity. Casting that wide net and then using artificial intelligence to sort through it actually improves diversity at the end of the day. The acceleration in time is reducing the cost per hire. The recruiters are actually more productive because they're spending more time with the highest quality candidates. Some of our customers have something close to 100% turnover in some of their jobs and some of their operations, and we can extend the life of an employee in some cases up to a year or more, which has very dramatic impacts on their cost structure. And we're seeing employees get promoted. When you're hiring more high quality people, we see promotions start to increase and the overall workforce improve as a result. Quick example here with Unilever, and Unilever is doing something very unique in that they're doing a lot of interviewing for graduate programs and people that are coming out of university. And they're actually not asking people to interview for a particular job, They're asking people to interview generally. And we're using artificial intelligence to sort those and start to match those candidates with different fields of interest inside the organization. So they've reduced their time to hire by almost 90%. They've improved their diversity as a result of that because they're talking to a more diverse group of candidates at any point in time. And they've got a 96% candidate completion rate, meaning that for every 1,000 people that are interviewed, 96% complete that interview process in about 48 hours. So very high velocity in terms of the candidate pool. And they've obviously considered their cost savings as well because they're traveling a lot less. Recent quote from The Economist I wanted to share too, and I think one of the things that we're very concerned about, and I think people should be generally, is about the role of artificial intelligence in the hiring process. And our focus is really to use that to increase diversity in a very positive way. We do know that we can do that. We have the data to prove that as well, but we're also very focused on making sure that we've got models and data sets that encompass a wide variety of organizations and a wide variety of cultures as well. We do assessments in about 17 languages today around the world for companies. So we're seeing a very positive impact globally, and this isn't just a US phenomena. So a little bit about us to wrap up in the few minutes that we have remaining. Today we've got, as I mentioned earlier, we've got about 700 customers. We've done close to 6.5 million, soon to be 7 million interviews. We're clicking along at a rate of about 10,000 interviews globally today. We track NPS scores for all of our candidates, and we know that candidates are having a very good experience. The average NPS score for all the candidates taking interviews is a 70 today. What I tell customers too, if I gave you access to any 100 of those interviews and just asked you to watch them with the sound off, what you'd see most often is people smiling. They're getting an opportunity to interview for a job, they're talking about themselves in a very positive way, and they're getting a shot at a job that they probably wouldn't get otherwise on their own time and their own terms. As we said, we're at 32 languages today. It's all very mobile too. We have about 2.4 million app downloads, and we're about 300 people today, largely headquartered in Salt Lake. Very broad customer set, as we see on a global basis. Where we're seeing the fast adoption is really at the global 2,000 level. For those companies, the hiring challenges are incredibly acute. When you've got 50,000 employees and 100% turnover in a particular part of your company, you're ready to embrace technology as a new way to find talent and to improve things. As we say, Marriott is a very large customer, Delta is a very large customer. If you're flying home on Delta today or tomorrow, watch that in-flight safety video because they use that same film studio to film questions for candidates, and that's how they serve up their video at interviews in a very engaging way. So I won't read all the lists here. Goldman Sachs is probably the one I should mention. Is Goldman Sachs, as I like to say, used to interview only at schools I couldn't have gotten into many years ago. They're interviewing at 900 colleges and universities around the world using video and using HireVue as the primary way to attract student talent. So with a few minutes left, I ran through that pretty quickly. We're conscious of time here, but glad to answer any questions that anybody has or talk about anything that's on anybody's mind. Please. So we are not sourcing, so they have their own sourcing functionality and will generally interface right to their applicant tracking system. And the recruiters will be working through the ATS and just kicking off and sending an email invitation to somebody. That's one typical way that people do it. We also have customers that are at hiring fairs and job fairs with a business card with a QR code on it. You just scan that and you can get dropped right into a video interview. So there's a lot of different ways it can be served up. Please. Absolutely, and in terms of the transition, one of the things we generally try and do is not be all things to everyone, but focus on a very specific hiring problem. In the case of a large bank, it might be tellers or customer service agents. And what we find is the change management resources on their side are very focused on the problem, and so adoption moves along very quickly. We can generally be live in 10 to 12 weeks for most customers. This is not a particularly heavyweight set of applications. A lot of the time goes into customization, creating the branded experience, working on the questions and things like that. So we'll help them develop that. With the assessments, we have our own IO psychology team and data scientists that come out of the industry. So we'll actually work with you and say, what are you looking for? You're looking for customer centricity, tenacity, a variety of skills like creative thought. Let's design the questions that elicit that. And we can generally do that in probably 5 or 6 or 7 questions. So pretty fast. Anything else? Well, terrific. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate the time.